The winter baker managed to save me a small case of whipping cream. And then it was gone. And I had no more cream through Christmas, all the way through until the last month or so. And then I got a big delivery of whipping cream, and I was so excited.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. Today on the show, I have such a great conversation with Cree LeFavour. Cree is a novelist, cookbook author, accomplished chef, and most recently spent some time cooking at the South Pole. We talk all about this adventure of a lifetime, the ups and downs, how she cooked at elevation and with very little fresh vegetables and produce, and really we got into what life is like living at the South Pole. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Cree LeFavour, welcome to This is Taste. How are you?
I'm doing really well today. I'm all dried off from the rain and happy to be here.
Well, weather is maybe a topic we can get to. Because
we will.
You're a celebrated cookbook author, a journalist, and we could get into your career, and we will a little bit, but I really wanted to ask you in because you just returned from the South Pole where you were working for, was it 6 months, 5 months?
You know, it was 4 months I worked there.
Felt like 4 years, I bet.
It did a bit. It did indeed. So actually, to be totally accurate, I was 1 month at McMurdo, which is on the coast.
Right.
For anyone who doesn't really know the geography of Antarctica. And then I was 3 months at the South Pole for what is called the austral summer. So it's just, summer down there. And they have an opening. The U.S. station opens during that period.
I get it. So I found your kind of journey through your husband, Dwight Garner. He was a guest on the show, and we were talking about it. And then I found your Substack, and I read every single one. You're such a talented writer, and you painted this picture of isolation, of creativity, of you were cynical about the administration there. I just want to get into all of it.
Right.
And so you were technically at the South Pole for 3 months, which not everyone who goes to Antarctica gets to go to. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I really got lucky because a lot of people kind of wait in line with it's USAP, which is United States Antarctic Program, which is one way to get there. That's really the only way to officially get to the South Pole unless you're working for a tourist outfit. I got really lucky with a last minute sort of contract. The contracts process is complicated and I was so thrilled. So it's my dream.
Let's start from the beginning. And you wrote about this in Substack. I'm gonna link to in the show notes because I think listeners should go back and read some of Cree's writing. It's fantastic. Maybe it's a longer piece. We'll get into that. But how did you find the job listing? I mean, it sounds like you just kind of stumbled upon this kind of listing.
Well, I kind of did. So I was already an Antarctic fanatic a little bit because as I explained in my Substack, I've just been reading Antarctic literature for a really long time, like well beyond the sort of typical Shackleton obsession that everyone went through. I started reading Apsley Cherry Garrard's book, which is called The Worst Journey in the World. When I was really young, my dad gave it to me. So I've sort of had this location, this geography in my mind for, I don't know, a really long time. So I've always been fascinated. And then I couldn't sell my novel. So I was sitting on the sofa and just, trying to think of anything but that, trying not to check my email, trying to be a human being. And I had set up an alert for an Indeed alert for jobs in Antarctica, just so I could just look at them and be, oh, wow, check it out. They have mechanics, they have carpenters, they have water plant supervisors, they have all these weird jobs. And then occasionally a chef job would come up and I'd think, And then I think, the only thing I've really done professionally in the kitchen, I grew up in a restaurant family, so I'm familiar with kitchens and I've grown up in the food world. But I've only really worked professionally as a baker before. So I suddenly one day, when I was sitting there, a baker job came up.
It was literally a baker.
It was head baker,
wow.
McMurdo Station.
Yeah, and you knew what that meant. It's a bigger station there.
It's a bigger station. So you're baking actually for more like, you're one of 3 bakers there, and you're baking for the population there blows up to over 1,000 at points when the vessel comes in to resupply, which is once a year. But I didn't care. I was so thrilled. So I applied just on a whim because they make it so easy for you and just click through the thing. And I thought that's probably the end of that. And then from there, I just was like a day later, I got you've qualified.
Wow.
Sort of some bot decided that I had the qualifications by scanning my resume. And then before I knew it, I had an interview and I had what's called an alternate contract.
Oh, I see.
Yep.
So you had this call, and I remember you wrote it on your Substack, and there was a vetting process. There was like some background check happening. I'm sure there was like some psychological examination thing happening. I mean, what is that interview process like? Because you're asked to bake in an environment that most even professional bakers, it sounds like you're like fringe professional baker, probably are going to have challenges at.
Very much so.
Yeah.
So there is no psychological testing even for winter at the South Pole,
Wow.
which is insane.
Wow.
So to speak.
Yeah.
There used to be. You used to have to pass a psychological full-on like multi-hour interview with a shrink in order to just overwinter there. Now they've cut that out entirely. So you essentially have to pass an extensive physical test. So that it's called a PQ process, physical qualification. So you have to be pretty top shape. Like you can't, it's tough if you're diabetic. It's tough if you've got really crazy high cholesterol, have had heart problems, any of that. They don't want it because it's just a nightmare. And particularly for the South Pole, which is different because it's at 11,000 feet effective elevation.
No way.
It's technically 9,300, but effective elevation because of the pressure, which they keep track of on the big board, is mostly around 11.
What's Mexico City? Is that around...
Boy,
I'm sorry to quiz you, but I feel like Mexico City is close to, I mean, that's like...
Is it that high?
It's pretty high, but I mean, the 11,000 is pretty high.
11's really high.
Yeah.
I was born in Aspen, Colorado, which is 8.
Yeah.
So that, I think, helped me because I didn't really have a lot of trouble with the altitude, actually.
Yeah, I mean, growing up in the Rockies, you were...
Yeah.
You passed the exam.
So I passed the exam, exactly. I passed the physical exam, and then they do an extended background check, which is called an EBI through the federal government. Like, I don't know who the hell does it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that takes a long time. Mine got done really fast, and I was good to go. So that's a green light, and then you're kind of at the ready. You're an alternate. And then they happen to call me up and say, I kind of made nice and tried to be really available. And they said, well, something's come up. And basically, someone didn't PQ for my position at the pole. So they got disqualified through the PQ process. And they needed somebody at the last minute to go to the pole. And I took that job.
That's incredible. So
I know.
You take this job. You're in New Zealand. You're writing from New Zealand. And then you end up at McMurdo for that first month. Take us through the first 48 hours once you're in your very small bunk and you take a lot of photos in your Substack about this room that you live in. What's the first 48 hours like?
So you want the first 48 hours, that small bunk is at the South Pole.
Oh, okay, so you had a little more space.
I know. So when I arrived at McMurdo, and this is one of the worst things in the world for someone who's no longer in their 20s, you are sharing a room with 3 other people.
Wow.
4 people in a room. I was on the bottom bunk. Nobody was on the top bunk, thank God. But it could have happened. So I was actually sleeping in a room with all these other women who had never met. It was insane. So I was dreading that, but actually it was kind of okay. I just put up a curtain, which is what people do, and deal with it. They do not mess around. They are exploiting their labor force immediately. There's no, get used to the station. Can we show you around? I got there in the evening, next day, kitchen.
Yeah.
They issue you, I'd been issued 6 kitchen uniforms in New Zealand, which they hand out along with what's called the ECW, which is the extreme cold weather gear.
Yeah.
And so I had all that stuff ready to go, and I had my kitchen shoes ready, and I just showed up in the kitchen.
Wow. And so you show up in the kitchen and what's the actual pantry? What are the ingredients looking like? You talk about freshies, which is parlance for fresh produce, which is very hard to find. What's it like when you walk into this kitchen?
So at McMurdo, because they had already had some planes, they had a crazy quantity of freshies, actually, at that point. So they get it in giant pallets. Yeah. And it's something of a disaster sometimes because they have to go through it really fast. And it's tough getting it. They have to get it on a pallet off a military plane when it's, well below zero. Right. Even worse at the South Pole, which when I was there, never got above 10 below Fahrenheit.
Wow.
So you know what happens to a banana when you put it in the fridge.
Yeah.
You know what happens to it when you put it in the freezer. Doesn't matter what state it's in, and lettuce and everything. So everything gets nipped a little and then starts to rot.
Yeah.
So you got to go through that. Basically, at McMurdo, I started in baking. It was a crazy sort of power grab in baking. There were 3 bakers trying to get lead baker. The woman who I ended up with was such a disaster. Oh. I was so glad when they came and said, would you like to work in Freshies because we have to process? And I was like, I'm out of here. Yeah. So happily.
She was a disaster because she was just did not have her stuff together?
No, she didn't really know what she was doing. Yeah. And she suddenly had this sort of ego problem. So,
I see.
Yeah, it was just not fun for me.
Not great. But did you ever regret it in that first month when you were at McMurdo? And we'll get into the South Pole. Did you regret it?
I mean, I was so glad I was leaving there. I don't think I would have made it if I had stayed at McMurdo. It's a big kitchen. It's really overcrowded. You cannot go, there's tons of corners. It's really poorly designed. So you're constantly like yelling, coming out, corner, blah, blah, blah. Like there's no sanity in there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of sous chefs. There's a lot of bosses. The main boss was gone. I don't know. It was kind of a mess in the food. Anyway, I mean, I definitely wept in the walk-in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I definitely wept in the walk-in.
I mean, it's not just a tough job. It's a tough job, like, in isolation with nothing to decompress, plus far from your family.
Exactly. Like,
really hard.
You don't know anyone, I mean, there were nice people around, but I'm also a little older than most of the population there. So that's a little, I mean, I'm not by any means the oldest, but I'm certainly the majority of the population are in their 20s and early 30s.
Well, so let's go to the South Pole. So you end up taking a transport down to the South Pole where you ended up staying for 3 months. What's the difference there right away that you notice?
Right away, there's, it's a tiny station. So, I mean, tiny in that its max capacity is somewhere around 150. Yeah. 145.
Not 1,000 like McMurdo, right?
No. So it's just intimate in a sense. So everyone, when you arrive at McMurdo, South Pole, you have to mask for 5 days. And I noticed over the course of the summer, watching people mask was so interesting because it was a marker of the new population. So people come and go. And so everyone who was new on station had a mask on. Not that I wouldn't have recognized them, but it was so interesting.
Yeah, that dynamic. So once you finish your 5 days, you're free, but then new people come in, you know who they are.
Yeah, and you know exactly who they are. So when I arrived, I was arriving to a kitchen full of people who had wintered over. That is a 9-month, no moving out, no going anywhere situation where it's dead dark most of the time.
And it's like 10 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit? Or
No. It was minus 40 when I arrived.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and it gets down to, I mean, it's been down to minus 100. It's usually minus 80 Fahrenheit or so. So it's incredibly cold over the winter. So summer's warm and the flights can't really come in and blow. When it gets around minus 50, they can't really fly at all.
So when you are speaking for the first time with these folks who wintered over, do you notice a difference in personality type of these individuals?
Well, they were kind of nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were absolutely nuts. I was like, can we get you guys out of this kitchen? Maybe, I mean, and there are flights. So flights coming in and out of the South Pole, it's complicated. There's weather. There's old planes, C-130s that are breaking down. There are crew issues. There's COVID. There's just like endless delays. The new crew, me and my new boss got in there and we were so ready to just start.
Yeah.
But these older holdovers are there. I got 2 days with the former baker, which was great. She was great. And she gave me the ropes quickly and got the hell out of there because she could not have been more excited, of course, to go back to her life in reality. They had been there, I just can't even imagine.
I mean, 9 months is 3 times what you spent there.
Exactly.
And you seem like you're ready to bounce after 3 months.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I was absolutely ready to bounce. Yeah. So anyway, they were a little nutty. The kitchen was not clean.
Yeah.
We were just scrubbing it down, trying to get some order in there. Things were disorganized. I don't know. Everyone does a kitchen differently. So I shouldn't really criticize them.
No,
That's
not
just the way it does. That's just the way it rolls. And I can imagine my kitchen would look like garbage if I stayed there for 9 months. I would have been like, fuck this.
What's the biggest shocker that you realized when you're speaking with these winter over folks that you maybe didn't even perceive as spending 9 months at the South Pole? And we'll get into your 3 months too, which is tremendous.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, just the prospect of being with the same group. It's 40 people over winter generally.
Man, so it's
Between
much
40
smaller.
and 45s, it's really tiny population. So I just left the population that of people that maybe half of the people I knew were staying who were in the summer were staying over, and I just was like, oh my God, you poor bastards.
Yeah.
Some people really dig it though. Some people love it.
I'm sure it's a personality type. I mean, there's definitely, it's constant danger. I mean, when it's 80 degrees below, 20 degrees below, 40 degrees below, I mean, it's constant danger. You're risking your life daily, right?
Well, if you go outside, you have to really pay attention.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest danger obviously would be to be drunk and outside.
Yeah.
I mean, you very quickly be a dead person. They have an emergency pod because obviously if the main generator went down or the main power plant, everyone would die.
Yeah.
Right. So they have a whole backup system that could support the winter population if that were to happen. So it's a very serious situation.
Yeah, it's serious.
And no one can come in or out. So in other words, there's nobody is coming to rescue you. So there have been cases where a woman discovered she had breast cancer over winter, and they dropped chemo drugs.
I interviewed her in
cool.
1999 in college when I was at the college paper.
Oh, cool.
I remember her vividly. She was incredible. She wrote her memoir about that time there.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
I mean, I just think that's so amazing. That whole story blew my mind. I remember reading it.
Amazing story. She was a physician, right? Or she was.
I think she was the physician.
She was.
So they always have a physician and a physician's assistant on station, winter and summer.
We could go in so many directions.
I know we could. Sorry.
No, this is amazing, and I love having you in, Cree. And I want to hear about what you were baking when you were at the South Pole. What are some of the challenges that you face when having to make things that are not just edible but actually celebratory? Because baking, we know, is part of, like, we love baking. Baked goods is what makes us feel good, and I'm sure you were a big part of making your fellow polars happy.
Exactly. So it's a morale position. It really is. It's a morale booster. So, and Baker more than anyone, like you just pointed out. I can tell you it was very challenging. So because there are no quote unquote freshies, that means there's no actual eggs in the shell. There are frozen cartons of eggs that you need to blend in order to thaw, blend, and use. There's no milk. There's no cream. There's powdered milk. I mean, which is really essentially no milk.
Which is not baking. You can't bake with powdered milk.
You do.
Well, of course
you do.
Oh, you do.
Yes, you do. Even if it's non-fat, which is really hopeless. There's no sour cream. The winter baker managed to save me a small case of whipping cream, which was incredible to have at the beginning because I love making scones for my other job, and I was really excited to, have a little cream to work with. And then it was gone, and I had no more cream through Christmas, all the way through until the last month or so. And then I got a big delivery of whipping cream, and I was so excited because if you're a baker, there are so many things that you cannot do without cream. So I really just tried to work. You have to learn to work with your ingredients. We made yogurt there out of powdered milk and yogurt starter.
Yeah.
So there are ways to make sour cream from, that product, which isn't great. There's plenty of butter. It's been frozen since the Carter administration, like a lot of the other stuff on station.
Wow, I love it.
It is old.
Yeah.
So I found some pie mix, which I wasn't using, but it was in the pantry, and I looked at it, and it was pre 9/11.
Wow.
So April 2001.
Oh my goodness.
So stuff is really old. So there's canned goods there that have been leaching the lead into them for 10 years.
Does the lack of humidity help preserve?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the stuff is in a very cold space down in we put it in order every week that they bring up our supplies.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like your restaurant order arrives once a week, same thing. It's coming up from a space that's about 60 below. So that does help preserve it.
You really paint a picture of the staff there in your Substack. The folks who are doing like the petroleum, those guys seemed like intense. The guys bringing up the guys, I'm just saying, not gendering, but the bringing up the products from these 60 below. That's a job.
No, supply is a job for sure.
Supply is a job.
Yeah. So I was jealous of all these people because
I know.
they're outside, half in, half out. Some of them are out a lot.
Which is why you're there. You want to be outside.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
I want to be out in the world.
Yeah.
Even if I'm driving a bulldozer, I want to be outside pushing snow around, right? And I'm stuck in the kitchen, which I did have a fabulous view. So I had an incredible view of the ceremonial South Pole.
Oh, wow. I know it. You've seen it in media.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was incredible. I had the spread of a view that I couldn't believe it. And every time I got really angry in the kitchen because I was working overnight, which was so unusual.
Important point to bring up.
Yeah.
Your hours were intense.
Yeah, the hours really intense. So there's a really important point to bring up. So I knew that I signed on for a 6-day week, and they call it 9-hour day.
Wow.
Which is, it includes breaks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I worked overnight shift, so I'm not taking a break. I'm just trying to get my job done, right? So forget the breaks. I often worked a 10, 11, 12-hour day, and then that was 6 days a week. So it was a lot of hours. And I was trying to do a really good job, as we all would, like as anyone would. And I was really invested in trying to make good stuff with what I had, which wasn't always easy. I mean, I had canned fruits. Which were amazing. Like, I've never appreciated canned peaches before.
What did you make with the canned peaches?
I made a really nice, like, custard tart. Like a pretty, like, peach custard tart that sort of hardens and caramelizes in the oven. I love that recipe. It's a joy of cooking recipe, actually. I don't know. I had a lot of nuts, which was great.
Yeah.
There's certain things that I did have.
Having butter doesn't hurt either.
No, having butter is amazing. I mean, the butter was fine. I mean, it wasn't perfect. I wouldn't really want to eat it cold on a perfect piece of bread because it had a little off going on, but it was fine for
But it was fine for cookies. I'm sure you made cookies a lot, right?
So basically my job was to put out a morning item. So some kind of baked item for morning, which might be a muffin, might be a scone, and it might also be a pre-made item, like a pre-made croissant that's frozen on the dock, which I call the most beautiful freezer in the world because it's where I put all my frozen stuff. And I step out there, and this is our freezer space for storage of our frozen goods for the kitchen that we have up with us. And it's just so beautiful. So I walk out there to get my frozen croissant to put in the oven. And there I am at the South Pole looking at the endless white, perfect, pristine. I mean, it's incredible. Actually, that's not true. It's not perfect, pristine because there are many little buildings and all kinds of
some
things.
Bulldozers running around. I'm sure there's like some, oil leak somewhere happening.
Yeah, they're very sketchy about oil leaks, but definitely lots of activity.
They're doing their
on.
best. They're doing their best.
They're definitely polluting the air during the day with tons of bulldozers.
Yeah, I'm sure the air quality too. Just you probably smell diesel all the time, right? Being at the bowl.
I wouldn't go that far.
Okay, that's good.
But
just reading your work, I was like, this seems gnarly.
It was I would try to get outside every day, even though I was exhausted, and walk around. And yes, you do smell they're moving the snow around all the time because it's a real drift problem. Yeah. It's actually not snow, it's ice crystals.
Yeah.
And they accumulate around the buildings and they have to move it away. So anyway.
Let me ask you, did you feel the workers there appreciated what you were doing?
Yeah, I did.
They
were super nice about it. Everyone was really like, oh my God, we love this. Oh my God, can you make this again?
Yeah.
And it was great. When I had that cream, for example, I made flan and everyone's like freaking out because they just were craving that for some reason.
I mean, you're like such an important part of the morale of a place where morale is like probably the most important thing.
Yeah.
Once morale goes south, there's no work being done.
Yeah. And morale can go south. Yeah. I think the baking can really help people out. I think people blame me for not losing weight or gaining weight over their summer. Some people. So anyway, I was starting to say that my job was to make that breakfast item. And then I need to make a cookie because you brought up
Yeah.
Made
There's
lots
always
of cookies.
A cookie happening.
I made a cookie every lunch, basically. That was my deal. So And then I made a dessert item that's not a cookie, like some kind of desserty dessert, like a cake or cupcakes or pies or whatever. So, and then I made bread for dinner.
The bread was that's got to be challenging.
Oh my God. So I made bread at home a little bit, but as anyone who makes bread for a living knows or has tried to do it at home, unless you do it all the time, your results are not consistent.
Yeah. And like being thrown into a scenario where you have to make sandwich bread for people who expect it to be commercial sandwich bread.
Okay, I didn't have to do that.
Oh, that's good.
Thank God.
I mean,
if I had to do that too, it would have been bad.
So there was already sandwich bread.
So there's crappy sandwich bread that's frozen.
Yeah.
Again, maybe Obama administration.
Yeah.
So I made the bread that goes with dinner.
You made like the good bread.
I made the good bread people slice and eat their meal. So I try to match it to what's going on. Like I made a lot of focaccia for the Italian. I made like masala loaves for like Indian night. Whatever. Try to be a little creative. I had a couple interesting challenges with the bread. I mean, I'm not a super bread pro, so I had a learning curve, which was great. And I actually am so much more confident now because I made bread every day for 3 months, which is like going to bread school, right? I mean, it's essentially
going to a lot of schools.
Yeah.
I mean, this is such a once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah.
You went to a lot of schools.
No, I did go to a lot of schools. You're right. That's
cool.
That's a good way to put it. And bread itself polls really fascinating because there's absolutely no air pressure. Yeah. So baking at high altitude, of course, as everyone knows, is a whole different game.
Yeah, different temperature.
And I hadn't really baked at high altitude since I was a kid, which really doesn't count. So sugar liquefies at a lower temp. Everything rises like crazy. And then if it's a cake, it doesn't have the structure to support it, so it falls.
Oh, my goodness.
So you got to slow it down. The bread doughs, you got to cut the yeast, and it still rises like crazy. I turn around, and the thing is coming out of the Lexan. I mean, it's insane quantity of dough, just like rising like the great blob. So I learned. Yeah. The oven wasn't great. I hated the oven. Yeah. Honestly, I hated the oven. But I had to deal with it.
So let me ask you about recipes. Did you bring any books with you? And were you combing, NYT Cooking, Epicurious? I mean, where were you finding these recipes?
All of the above. So I brought, I have a baking book that I keep at home because I love baking, and I have my own recipes that.
Oh, your own book. Cool.
Well, like my own book, of recipes that I put, that I always love, that I trust, and the ones that I used at my previous job, which was 10 years ago at the Garrison Institute. And so I copied that out into a new book so that I have a little extra room to add. I brought my particularly favorite, I think it's the 86th edition of Joy of Cooking. I just peeled off the baking section of that because my husband didn't want me to do that to the one we have. So I just got a new copy and did that. And then, so that's what I brought because I knew that would be my basics, and I always trust that particular edition of Joy. Mm-hmm. And then, sometimes I would just get on the internet when it existed. So internet is satellite at the South Pole. So it's about 6 hours a day, 8 hours. I forget already.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So there's like internet hours.
Yeah. Wow. And it changes by 4 minutes a day. So it got earlier and earlier in the day.
Wow.
And it's amazing how that adds up. So by the end of my time there, I really only had internet started at sort of 1:30 a.m., which was great for me because I could look something up or, check my email at 1 a.m. because I was awake. But for the rest of the station, and then it's just off.
Cree, this is what an amazing opportunity to have only 6 hours of internet a day.
It's great.
Is it great? So I was going to ask you, is it great?
I think it's kind of great. I mean, as someone said about the dining room, so it's a cafeteria where everyone eats, of course, between every meal. And when the internet shifted at night, and there was no longer internet at night, all of a sudden no one's looking at their phone.
Yeah, it's a social study, yeah.
Suddenly, people are talking to each other at dinner. I mean, that's not true. People do talk to each other at dinner because I think people, it's a little like, it reminded me very much of college / maybe high school dynamics. There's a lot of people that stay together. There's definitely hierarchies. Anthony Bourdain made a famous episode about Antarctica, which is great.
Yeah,
and
0.0. I was working there actually when they were filming that, and I remember walking into the kitchen one day, and they had a big map of Antarctica, and the producers were all looking at it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
He got the grand tour. I mean, he got to go to a field camp. He got to go to McMurdo, and then he went to South Pole. And he made the point that everyone's equal. Like, everyone's equal. Well, not really. Because there are NSF, which is National Science Foundation, which runs the whole thing. It's in charge of the whole program. Scientists. And ostensibly, we're all there to support the science. That's the whole reason.
I'm glad I was meant to, from the jump, there's like a whole purpose for this. It's not just hanging out in the snow. It's not just moving save
snow
the planet.
Around. It's exactly save the planet.
Yeah.
And find out about black holes. There are 2 giant, super important telescopes there. There's a neutrino detector, which I'm not going to explain what a neutrino is because I will embarrass myself. But it's essentially fascinating how deep in the ice. That's the perfect place to do that. So the science is really why we're all there, and it's always struck me as a really crazily big infrastructure for the number of scientists. I think the ratio needs to be a lot different just to politicize. Like, I'm just going to throw that in.
I mean, you have at the end kind of your coda for your work there. You have some thoughts, some general thoughts.
Yeah.
One was, I believe, you were definitely underpaid, and also B, and please correct me, you would rather be driving a bulldozer or doing something scientific than baking.
100%.
Let's get into that.
Yeah. So the kitchen staff in general, not just the baker, the kitchen staff 100%, and the people who wash dishes and keep front of house are paid the least. Stewies, we call them Stewies, the stewards for the front of house. Those are paid. They're paid considerably less than I was paid, which was not a lot. Everyone else on station is making more money than you are, some by a lot. So some people are making really good bank, and they're not spending any money because you can't spend any money there.
Yeah. 6 hours of internet, you're not hitting like the real at all.
No. You're definitely not, and it's not getting delivered either.
No, it ain't making it down there either. Yeah.
Nope, it's not going to get delivered.
Yeah.
That said, you can buy on Amazon and get a package there, but boy, you better do it first day of this season, or it's not going to make it on
amazing.
time. Yeah.
But
I ordered vanilla and ginger.
Oh wow, and it got there.
My vanilla got there. It started to crack, and everyone's like, the mailman was like, I'm pretty sure this is yours because the package was wrecked.
Wait, do you get Prime? Is it free?
Yeah, totally. Isn't that nuts?
I mean, it's amazing. I feel like Amazon needs to pay you to do some speaking about it because it's pretty great.
Exactly. I mean, free shipping to the South Pole?
I mean,
get
for
out of
real,
here.
Get out of here. Bezos.
I know, it's crazy.
But back to the dynamic, it seemed like you probably, if you go back and we can get into that, you would not want to be baking. You'd want to be doing other things.
Yeah. So I'd like a job where I was outside.
Yeah.
I'd love to make a little more money. And the hours are really unbearable for the cooks, right?
Yeah.
So like I said, and other people have a lot more time. They're sitting around at lunch for a long time. They're sitting around for their afternoon break. I mean, they're coming and going to outside. And I love the snow. I mean, snow and ice and cold, and the history of the fact that Scott and his companions made it there, and Amundsen, the Norwegian, made it there first.
Story's crazy.
I mean, his story's crazy. Scott's story's amazing. Cherry Garrard's description of that story and finding the bodies later and his various journeys. I write a lot about that in my Substack.
So the Shackleton story is a little bit overblown, you think, a little bit? It's been overdone a little bit.
Well, I think it's become, he's become a leadership kind of icon, which is sort of annoying. I found it sort of annoying.
Yeah, I love it.
I mean, because he was also kind of a
kind
of a dick.
The New Yorker
he wasn't really that
wrote
successful.
about Shackleton, and I felt like that was really clearly, guy's a dick.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Wow,
we could talk forever, but so let's wrap it up. And let me hear a little bit about leaving the pole and your thoughts on that last day. And do you think you'll ever go back?
So everyone's really excited to leave, obviously,
because
you haven't had any proper fresh fruit or vegetables. And
Your body's feeling it.
My body's feeling it. One of the things that we didn't talk about is the general food there, which is just really simple.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like starchy white carb. I was so craving complex carbs and protein that I lost a ton of weight there. It was great. I mean, I'm really happy about that. But anyway, so everyone's dying to get out, get to New Zealand, eat a bunch of fruit, and have darkness because, of course, it's light 100% of the time you're there. And I managed to sneak out one day early, which was fun, just because it irritated one person. And then, I don't know, coming back to New Zealand was incredible. The coffee was execrable at the pole. I mean, just so bad. And I would double the quantity and just about drink.
You didn't bring any coffee?
No, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I would bring, like, the V60 would be the first thing I bring.
No, you're 100% right.
Yeah.
And chili crisp and hot sauces. Like, you got to bring that stuff.
Oh my gosh, there's all this list of things you wish you would have packed.
Oh my God, seriously.
Chili crisp would have been.
It would have been a big.
Because like, you can definitely ration that out pretty well.
Well, and I lived on top ramen.
Whoa.
That's what I ate every day. And if we had eggs at all, I would throw a couple in there and get some protein.
Yeah.
Or I would cook up some spinach and throw that in there.
Yeah, it's good combination.
Yeah.
But coffee was bad. So you
coffee,
made it.
I really just like to get coffee. And then since I've been back in New York, my husband Dwight just calls me a fruit bat. Like all I do is eat fruit and veg. And I don't eat. It's kind of changed the way I eat in some ways right now. I mean, I'm not a huge white carb person anyway, but boy.
You burned out. What about like meat? Were you eating meat down at the
Very
pole?
little.
Yeah.
It's all been frozen for so long.
Yeah.
And I don't do chicken breasts. I don't believe in it.
No.
So I eat the thighs occasionally. I would eat if the night chef cooked them because she was really talented.
Yeah.
So that's about it.
Okay, so you're on the plane back to New Zealand. Do you think you're going to be back?
So I've already trolled some jobs. But
Cree.
I know
You've already trolled.
I'm a crack addict.
You're so going back. Wow.
So I don't know. So I will never go back as a cook. I will never go back in the quote unquote galley. But okay, so there's one outfit that does tourist trips, and they have a tourist camp right near the South Pole, which we all despise because it costs like $80,000 to $100,000 to go for one day.
Oh
so
my gosh.
I loathe that kind of gross spending. I just do. I was making like $2 an hour, and I just was like, fuck you people. But then I looked at that and they need like a lecturer, and I'm thinking that'd be really fun.
Oh, for sure.
Right. And then I saw a historian job like on some cruise, and I was like, that'd be fun.
Are you kidding me? I mean, anything with like tourism, you get a little bit cushier. But now that you've been there, you have like this history.
I have a little leg in for those kind of jobs. So I don't know. I also don't want to spend Christmas away from my family again. So I'm probably going to have to cool my jets a little bit for a minute.
I want to have you back to talk about your cookbook career. We kind of like let this time fly, and you know, you've written several cookbooks and you've written single subject books on steak, chicken, fish, and pork. Wow.
I know, right?
I love it. For Chronicle and 10-Speed Press.
Yep.
You're just fantastic. You're great.
And also my novel and memoir, which
of course.
I'm really proud of. So I know this is a food podcast, but I had to throw that.
No, we talk about fiction all the time.
And I'm working a book right now about walking in France because I walked from Paris. Well, technically, I was set out to walk from Paris to Avignon for my father, who walked in France a ton on the trail system there. And so I'm writing a book about France. So anyway, I'm working on that book right now. That's coming out from Bloomsbury. Hopefully, not too long from now.
Going to have you back and talk about that and your career and your cooking and New York. And we had to just talk about the poll. On This Is Taste, we ask guests about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire, fast, furious taste check. Are you ready?
Uh-oh, I'm ready.
The best fruit.
Satsuma tangerine.
Oh my God, of course. It's like, I mean, the season's, it's March now.
Right now.
It's kind of just over.
I eat like 3 pounds of them.
I love it so much. The worst vegetable.
Potato. Fuck potatoes.
Oh my gosh, first time ever.
Awesome. I'm so glad to be alone on that one. I hate them.
I'm going to let that sit, listener. Your favorite American fast food chain?
I really don't. I don't want to sound like Alice Waters, but I don't do it. And the one exception I make is the Egg McMuffin.
Oh, me too.
Okay, so that's it. So I guess McDonald's. Sad.
Your favorite New York City restaurant right now?
You know, Via Carrata. I just love that place.
Your favorite cookbook of all time?
Okay, I'm going to be honest in terms of just useful. I think a particular version of Joy.
Yeah.
Because I use it all the time.
You already just...
It's my go-to.
You just laid that
It's just
out.
my go-to.
Your favorite city outside of America to visit for food?
I'm going to say Rome, even though I haven't spent that much time there. It's aspirational. I've spent a little time there, and every time I eat, I love being in Italy and eating food in Italy. It makes me so happy.
A cuisine you would like to learn more about?
I would like to be a better Indian cook. And that means obviously going to India, checking out all the regional versions of what that means. I love Indian food.
Your favorite sandwich?
Peanut butter and marmalade.
Oh, wow, marmalade. Do you make marmalade every winter?
I don't, but my friend in Vermont does, and she does it right and sends me some.
You got the plug. You got the hookup.
Yep, I got the hookup. So there's that.
Cree LeFavour, thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun.
What's up, Eliza? How are you?
You know, I'm recovering because I just got back from New Orleans and I think my body is still processing all of the butter and alcohol, but I'm good.
Were those the major food groups in New Orleans, butter and alcohol?
I mean,
I love it.
Yeah, to be honest, they kind of were in a fun way. Shellfish, hurricanes, all of the above.
Before you get into your list, and I can't wait to go over it with you, I love New Orleans. I haven't been in a minute. Oyster situation. Are oysters making an appearance on your list?
To be honest, and I'm afraid to admit this on air, I'm not a huge oyster person.
All good. No judgment zone here.
I feel like they just don't do it for me in the same way they do it for other people. So if people are ordering oysters, I will have one just for the spirit, but cool. I don't really appreciate them in the same way.
Respect. Gulf oysters are quite different from those New England ones, but...
Also, aren't you supposed to eat them in months that end in an R? And it's currently March, which does not end in an R, so I did not eat them.
Gulf oysters are different. It's a great point, and March doesn't end in an R. Gulf oysters are year-round. I believe. But this is your list, not mine. I want to hear about yours, and I will add an aside at the end about my favorite oyster spot in New Orleans. But let's go into your list. I'm so curious.
Well, so I'll just say that I was staying uptown in the Garden District. I was there for the weekend. So a lot of the places I went to were uptown, but all over. And I was so excited because I was staying very close to Molly's Rise and Shine, and I finally got to have the carrot yogurt that I feel like they've become quite known for. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know the name of the venue, but I don't know the yogurt. So Shalia, you're shaking your head. You know it. I love this.
Yeah. Shalia just told me before we started recording that she has a lot of New Orleans food opinions. So I'm really just making eye contact with her and hoping that she approves.
I love it.
This is the breakfast spot from the Turkey and the Wolf crew. The carrot yogurt, I think, is what I would expect would be like my dish there. It's like a roast carrot marmalade they do over yogurt and granola, and they just grate a ton of lemon zest over the whole thing, which was something that I was like, why am I not grating citrus zest over my yogurt at home? I did that this morning, actually. So immediately I took that away. I really liked that there. They also do this like crispy rice salad. They call it like Thai night market style that has peanut and cilantro and jalapenos, and they serve it with like a roti scallion pancake. Very good.
I had a roti last night. I'm thinking like I need more roti in my life, so I love that one.
Me too. And you know, I don't like eating eggs that much, so having like a good savory breakfast option, that was really awesome. I also went to Mr. Mao, which is on the James Beard semifinalist list for Best New Chef of the South, with Sofina Uong as the chef there. Mm-hmm. They call themselves like a tropical roadhouse.
Wow.
And it's just a really fun experience. The menu also is really funny. They refer to burrata as the White Claw of cheese on the menu.
They're just taking names right there. I love that shit. That's so funny and smart.
Yeah, they call it burrata, quote, the White Claw of cheese. And it is that in a fun way. Yeah. They also had a whole section called These Things Bring Us Joy and Hellfire Heartburn that my family ordered everything on that list.
Oh, man.
And we were like, please tell us if we're going to die. But it was really fun. They did a really good aguachile with passion fruit that I really liked. Yeah. Also, pani puri. And then not in that section, like a little less spicy, they did a smoked oyster mushroom with smothered greens.
It feels global. Like there's not a. Is there like it's just like its own roadhouse, tropical
roadhouse, like kind of heavy on the South Asian flavor profiles, but all over. I believe the chef herself is Cambodian, but they're kind of just having fun with everything.
Sounds amazing. Like I need to go straight there.
Yeah, it was really fun. And then I also got to go to Brennan's for the first time.
Oh my.
Which is like down in the quarter. It was St. Patrick's weekend, which was quite the choice to go to Brennan's out of any restaurant. Because they are Irish. But they also are the inventor of the Bananas Foster.
Yeah.
You know, like the fajita effect, how in a restaurant when one table orders fajitas, everyone else does?
Oh yeah, of course.
they
It's
have
like
that-
it's like a virus, you know.
They have that, but with Bananas Foster, which is at every table in the restaurant is doing Bananas Foster, and they truly flambe it like up to the ceiling. Like there's just fire shooting off around the dining room the whole time you're eating there, which is really fun and festive.
So T. Martin, the owner and kind of face of Brennan's, is somebody I've always wanted to have on the podcast. So I feel like we gotta hear this story.
It was awesome. The service there was really fun. They were all kind of like old school New Orleans servers. The person who was flambeing our Bananas Foster told us that it's actually banned in some parishes in Louisiana because people kept burning down their restaurants, which I believe based on the sheer scale
I love it.
of flames that were happening. Oh, and I just wanted to shout out this place I went to for drinks, which was Canaan Table.
Yeah.
They do their take on a hurricane where they make their own Fasanola is what it's called, which is, I guess, like a kind of fruit punch concentrate that goes into a hurricane traditionally. But they're making a lot of things like that themselves, and it has like fresh citrus and rum. It's a very like rum heavy restaurant, but I thought that was really fun for drinks. And then afterwards, when you kind of need a good breakfast to soak it all up, I went to Rico Bono's Panola Street Cafe uptown, which my sister went to Tulane and she was with me, and that was her kind of default breakfast spot.
I love that you had local picks. You bury the lead here.
Oh, well,
I love
okay.
it.
The whole reason that I went was that my sister used to live in New Orleans and she's getting married in New Orleans next year. So we came back and did like wedding prep.
Oh, cool.
And she's the person that turned me on to the fact that you can order a biscuit griddled.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
And more butter. So it's like crispy, flaky sensation. And that was probably like the best breakfast I had the whole trip. Besides, I guess, the carrot yogurt. But it feels like those are it's like
Those are
dessert breakfast and like breakfast.
Yeah, one's like a breakfast, like post like 18 hurricane breakfast. Which did you hit Bourbon Street? Do you even go?
Well,
or did you step foot
yes.
on the avenue?
Yeah, so Brennan's is pretty close to Bourbon
right.
Street, and we were there on Sunday, which was St. Patrick's Day. And after dinner, my sister decided to go to Pat O'Brien's Piano Bar.
Oh, okay.
Have you been there before?
Pat O'Brien's.
Shalia's nodding her head at me.
Pat O'Brien's Piano Bar on St. Patrick's Day in the French Quarter. Interesting.
It was a choice. They have like two people doing pianos, and you can give your suggestions for songs. You know, like you write it on a table with a tip. And I was very proud because I wrote down Obla Di Obla Da by the Beatles because I thought that was a good like generational piano bar song, and they put it to the top of the list.
You're just creating the vibe in the piano bar. It's a great song.
Yeah. So that was my Bourbon Street moment.
I will say this, my additions, I like Felix for roasted oysters. And I think in New Orleans, roasted oysters is really the way I dig it. And I love that place.
Roasted or like char grilled?
Grilled, yeah. I guess you could call it grilled. Yeah, on the grill, served hot. I love Coop's, which is a jambalaya spot next to Fiorella, which is a fried chicken spot. And you can get fried chicken at both. But it's been years since I've been there. It's a great town.
I love New Orleans. I think when I travel, I really like going to cities that have a strong sense of place.
Yeah.
Like, you know where you are. You couldn't be anywhere else. And New Orleans just has that in the architecture and the people and the climate and the food. It's so singular, and it's so fun to get to go and just kind of buy in fully, which is what I did.
Absolutely. And I'll say like the food is so unique and singular. Great call. And when New Orleans style restaurants are attempted outside of New Orleans, they're never good or as good. I know there are folks who are very cool doing New Orleans style in cities outside of New Orleans or outside of Louisiana, but something about the terroir that you can't beat the seafood that is pulled from those waters. And of course the tradition, like the Creole tradition, is like you can't get like Creole chefs up in New York, you know?
Yeah, I think there are people that are doing great cooking in that style, but to me what really sets it over the top when you're in New Orleans is just the attitude that's there. I had a friend from New York that was with me for the night. We went to Canaan Table and we were waiting at the bar. The bartenders were kind of walking around. She was trying to flag down a bartender to come over, and I very gently just pulled her arm down and I was like, we don't do that here. We're gonna wait for them to come to us. And like, that's just the vibe. And I think even as a New Yorker myself, who very much, when I'm hungry, I want to eat. Like when I'm in New Orleans and I'm hungry, I'm going to sit down and smile and hope that somebody comes to me.
Thanks so much for sharing this. Cool memories there, Eliza.
Yeah, thanks for talking about it with me.
This is Taste is hosted by Eliza Abarbanel and me, Matt Rodbard. The show is produced by Shalia Harris and Pat Stango and edited by Clayton Gumbert. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter for updates on all cool things that are happening.